by the way, if you want. These are all just resources, some of the things that were there going on with that. And you know, the best convention is always kind of a boring convention, is my way to put it. Just because it means that there's nothing seismic going on, people aren't arguing about things or anything like that. And conventions are a lot of sitting around and talking about things, but it's also really good because, one, I mean, just kind of the business of the church gets done. It's a time soaked in worship and prayer. There's you know, services to start it. There's services throughout it. Normally, district conventions happen every triennium. That's every 3 years. But because of the COVID, the synodical convention was pushed back a year, which allowed us to push back our convention a year to a time that was safer than before. Especially once you consider that most church workers in the LCMS are north of 50. Unfortunately, that is one of the things that we did talk about. And please do keep that in your prayer. You know, we do support a seminarian, Adam Ellison, who is the S&P guy over at Faith. But there's 10 times the amount of guys retiring as there are going into seminary. And that's not even touching on DCEs and teachers, of which we are very low on as well. What that means, though, is that there will be a lot more vacancies than there are pastors. And when we talk about vacancies, there's two types of vacancies. There's vacancies of churches that cannot support a pastor and churches that can support a pastor and are looking. It means there's going to be a lot more churches that can support a pastor and just there's not going to be a guy there to serve. Which means for guys like me, we will have a congregation that we're called to, and then we'll have 2 or 3 other congregations that we're going to have to be serving at some point in our ministry because of that. So there is a need out there for qualified men who feel the call of ministry to go into it. Tammy, you had your, oh, okay, all right. So, the Oklahoma District Convention, it happened in June 10th through 12th, June 10th and 11th. We crammed everything into one day, 2 days. And let's go over, if we can put the election results up on the screen. You're going to have to take it to the other, take it all the way to the right. There you go. All right, so Pastor Barry Hinkey, the Reverend Barry Hinkey, has been our district president for a while, I think 13 years. And so he was stepping down from that. He's kind of semi-retired right now. So we elected a new president, Pastor David Neres, who is the pastor of Trinity in Norman. He's been the first vice president of the district for a while. Our new first vice president is Pastor Christopher Hall from Grace Tulsa. Second vice president is Pastor Mark Munchow from Messiah in Oklahoma City. Our third vice president is Pastor Tim McCarty from Emmanuel in Kingfisher. All right, and so that's just kind of how we just organize things. Our district secretary continues to be Pastor Butch Raines, which some of you guys are familiar. He used to be a member here. He's up in Guthrie and Zion. Our treasurer is Brent England from Faith Owasso. Our education executive is David Birnbaum from First Lutheran in Ponca City. Our evangelism director is a guy you've never heard of, Pastor Daniel Ross from Christ and Mustang. Our mission executive is Pastor Gary Rohrer from Our Savior in Bethany. If you're wondering what the difference is between evangelism and mission, so are we. So if you kind of have like, this is what I think evangelism is, this is what I think mission is, we would, kind of like that, we're trying to put together a questionnaire to go out to church workers in the district to kind of get some feedback on that as well. Our stewardship executive is Pastor Rick Tabbez from King of Kings in Glenpole. And then our youth executive is Suzanne Watt from Christ the Redeemer in Tulsa. All good people, all good people. And then we have our district board members of the Central Region. That is Pastor Jonathan Meyer of Holy Trinity, Pastor Aaron Ryder of Holy Cross in Lawton, and Mrs. Anna Marie Stephenson from First Lutheran in Ada. Then the Eastern Region is Pastor Ned Morby from Trinity Blackwell, Miss Amy Bowe, Shepherd of the Hills, Skiatook, and Mr. Mark Lehenbauer of Grace Tulsa. And in the Western Region is Pastor Aaron Cotila from Trinity, Brad Bunch of Christ Shattuck, and Mary Shorter of Zion. So that's just a whole lot of names, but each group does different things. We're a smaller district, so a lot of our pastors are involved in a lot of different things. And that's just those. We also held elections for Luther-Homa board of directors and things like that as well. I'm not going to get into all the minutia of that. The names you need to know: Pastor David Naras, Pastor Christopher Hall, Pastor Mark Munchell, Pastor Tim McCarty. Everybody else you can just go on the website for that. But and our website is oklahomalutherans.org. As far as things that we discussed and were voted on, there were just a few overtures. One was to request the expansion of permissions for the 1986 translation of the Small Catechism. So basically all you need to know of that is the 86 is an NIV, which is written at a much more accessible level for younger people than the ESV. ESV is at a high school reading level, the NIV is at a 6th grade reading level. So they basically want to be able to use that, but it's not published currently, and so they're asking that CPH please just, if it's not going to be published, allow us to use it for websites and things like that, just to make it easier. We did some busy work of updating the Oklahoma District Handbook. That's basically the equivalent of the Constitution and bylaws, of just cleaning up some language stuff, things like that. Again, boring stuff. All right. One of the things that was determined was, instead of electing our treasurer each triennium or each convention, that they could be appointed. And there was some debate about, okay, why are we doing this? And the reasoning was, well, it's getting harder to find people willing to do this. Most of these positions, all these positions up here are volunteer, by the way. The only people that really get paid by the district are secretaries and any missionaries that we support. And not the district secretary, by the way. Butch just loves bylaws and constitutions. So anyway, there was, it's getting hard to find a treasurer. So they said that this would be easier. Now the debate was, okay, but if we can't find somebody to elect, we already have written in there that they can then appoint somebody if the position is vacant. So it seemed like it was just doing something that was already possible. Well, whatever, it passed, basically. Not basically, it did pass. So they will be appointed by the president and ratified by the district board of directors from now on with that. And I mean, it's a $1 million budget that they're working with. So it is somebody that we want that is competent with that stuff and knows best practices and laws and things like that. And so money's not embezzled or anything like that, and nobody goes to jail. Right, another resolution was to raise the awareness of comfort dog ministries. We have several comfort dogs in the Oklahoma District. Comfort dogs are kind of a mercy work ministry. It's they take these dogs to the scenes of national or local tragedies, and they just kind of help people. Famously, there's a couple of people that every holiday season they get permission to be in the Chicago airport, and they'll have this like little section set up, and they'll have 2 to 4 dogs, and people that are just stressed out with traveling can come and take some time and pet the dogs, but then we're also able to share the gospel kind of in that moment and things like that. And so it's a way to do that in a non-threatening way. And so we said, yes, we should make people more aware of this.
A lot of those dogs went down to Uvalde from the Oklahoma District.
Yeah, yep. So yeah, the shooting down in Uvalde, Texas, and I think there's maybe some up in Buffalo after, and I don't know if the local ones got activated for Tulsa with all that, but they do also.
There was several. There was. I didn't realize we had that many dogs in the district, but there were several. My cousin's husband's a pastor there in Uvalde, so.
And this is a pretty unique ministry by the LCMS. I don't know of anybody, of another church body that has a pet ministry, so to speak, for this.
They probably all like cats. I'm teasing them.
No, I have a whole sermon that cats are evil. It's based on the epistle lesson today. You know, kittens are great, but they grow up to be cats. That's the only problem with kittens. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But it is a way to just, again, in a world that is very against Christianity, especially right now, just a way to kind of say, hey, look, you know, we actually stand for things. We are here for peace. We are here for comfort. We are here for love. And this is one way that we can serve our neighbor when they're dealing with trauma, when they're dealing with stress or something like that. And so that's how they're used. There was a resolution, I'm just going to read the title here, to request that the Oklahoma District LCMS develop sabbatical guidelines for congregation, schools, and call district church workers. All right, and that passed, and basically a sabbatical is it's a intentional prolonged absence. They can be anywhere for a month to a year, historically, a year, all right? Commonly, they're just a month or so, and historically, it's been the practice of pastors or church workers taking time off, basically kind of to focus on things that you can't necessarily do when you're in the ministry every single day because you have so many demands on your time and things like that. So famously, there used to be a preacher in England who would take like June off and go up to Scotland, and he'd write all his sermons out for the year and everything like that. But it's an intentional, planned break, but there's no guidelines for it. And so they said, okay, this is what we need to do because, okay, what do you do with salaries and how do you have the pulpit filled and ministering to people, all that stuff. And so they're going to come out apparently with guidelines for that to help churches that are able to do that have a way to figure that out and how to do that. And then reaffirm the sanctity of human life in the face of overturning Roe v. Wade. That passed. And then Roe v. Wade got overturned shortly thereafter. And that was all the resolutions, or overtures, I should say, for that. There was a couple of overtures that were submitted that didn't make the floor. And that's fine. That's the floor committee's purview to do that. That's why we have 4 committees. But that was the business part, was the election and the overtures. Now, Alan, you had a unique witness. I'm going to ask you to come up here, or unique perspective, unique witness, whatever you want to call it, to come and kind of talk about what you saw and what you were encouraged by and things like this.
I had the unique privilege of representing our church at the convention. When I first accepted that, I thought, well, hey, this would be a chance just to kind of sit back and listen to what's going on. Well, a week or so later, I got a letter from the district president asking that I be on one of the floor committees, and it was the voting committee. You can imagine a group of about 150 to 200 people voting in a paper environment. How much time that would take for all the things that Pastor just outlined to us there. My estimation that in that environment would add at least 2 to 3 hours to the length of the conference.
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been at those.
So, with that, I found out that they were going to be introducing a new type of voting. As the voting delegates signed in, you received on a lanyard a little device that was about the size of a playing card and 1/4 of an inch thick. This is how you voted. You got to the point in time where the president said it's time to vote. They turned the computers on, and you voted with a little keypad that to me looked like a touch-tone phone keypad, with 1 being A, B, C, and however many delegates, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's how you voted. The time I think it would take to do this vote from the time he called for the vote, shut the computer off, the computer counted the votes and projected on a couple of TV screens up front in 2 variances. One was a bar graph of the percentage for each candidate, and another one was an actual count, and this took about 5 minutes, 10 minutes at the most. So it was for us on the voting committee, we were just there to kind of stand by in case the computer failed, which it didn't. It worked perfectly through the whole thing. In one breakout session, we did do a hand ballot, and there was maybe 30 to 40 people in the room. You had to hand out a piece of paper, and collect the papers, and then count the papers, and then come back and report back. Now, we were fortunate to have a pastor that was the head of our committee from Stillwater, Pastor which it begins with a W, I can never pronounce it. Pardon?
Wackler?
Yeah. And he was more familiar than anybody on the committee. But it was a unique experience to sit next to a bunch of men that you had never seen before and exchange ideas and conversations and come to find out that their churches are having some of the same problems that we're having. So we're not in this.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about little problems.
Yeah.
Little problems. You know, like attendance and things of this nature. It's just, it seems to be a universal thing that the church is going through at this point in time. It was a unique experience for me, and Asha attended also, and hopefully it was for her also. We did get to meet one of Asha's favorite people, Pastor Matthew, who's our synodical president. We got to meet him in person and talk with him for a little bit, and he's just like Pastor Ross here. He's very easy to talk to and very pleasant man. So it was a great experience for me and for Asha, and I thank you for allowing us to do that.
Yeah, he was. There was, I can't remember if you said 6 or 9 conventions going on at the same time, and so we were pretty lucky to actually have the president of Synod be at our convention, because there's only like 6 vice presidents, so there's going to be a representative from Synod at each of the district conventions, and so he was at ours, and then he was at Arkansas's the next weekend. He started off with a nice little joke saying it's nice to be in Kansas. But it had been just, you know, this is travel season for him. But and he gave a presentation, well, geez, an hour and a half long or so.
Yeah.
And just talked about, in one aspect, the state of Lutheranism in the world. So we are in fellowship, altar pulpit fellowship with several Lutheran church bodies throughout the world. So talking about that and some of the things going on over there, and some of the growth that we've seen in Lutheranism, especially in Africa and South America, that's going on right now, which is very, very encouraging. Talked about some of the hardships that we face, again, the shortages of church workers and things like that. I mean, he had his notes. We don't see his notes, so, but all the sessions, by the way, were recorded and posted live on Facebook. So if you go to the district's Facebook page, you can go back and watch all these presentations, by the way. But he sat and talked, and then, yeah, very approachable. You could talk with him after. Sat down and talked with him for about 5 minutes outside. That was right when the 100-degree heat was hitting that weekend. So, but it was very, very good convention, very collegial convention. Like I said, the best convention is the boring convention. So, any questions about anything that happened at the convention, or anything going on within the synod or the world at large?
Okay, you mentioned they were deciding what to do with the Roe v. Wade, you know.
So that, yes.
And of course, what did they talk about?
So at that point, all right, this is June, okay, so the leaked rough draft of the opinion had happened, but we still hadn't had the actual official opinion. And so there was a overture submitted to reaffirm the sanctity of human life in the face of overturning Roe v. Wade. And basically, it was just a reminder that if Roe v. Wade gets overturned, that doesn't end our job of witnessing to the sanctity of life. That work will happen until Christ returns. And so I'm not going to go through all the whereases, but basically, you know, Bible witnesses to human life. We witness to human life. This decision was handed down in the 70s, and that it could be overturned very soon. That we would consider, or that we would continue to endorse the Ministry of Lutherans for Life and LCMS Life Ministry. That was a friendly amendment that got added. That convention delegates, pastors, teachers, church workers, and congregations commit to the review and study of various resolutions on the sanctity of life by pro-life Lutheran church bodies. That's also on Lutherans for Life. That the one controversial part of this was that the author said that he encouraged pastors to attend pro-abortion rallies as a witness, and it was just like, yeah, but
Maybe wear a suit of armor.
yeah.
Wow. Bulletproof
And that district leadership make efforts to communicate support to all state political and civic leaders who are pro-life and things like that. So that was that resolution. Basically, that we just continue to do what we've already been doing when it comes to this issue.
Because we spoke a little bit about it last week when Munchau was here.
Okay.
Not that part of it, but it had happened.
Yeah.
And what our responsibilities and preparations for our responsibilities would be because of this, how many more women especially are gonna need help.
Yep. So one of the things that I was planning on talking about in the next several weeks is how we might be able to, as a congregation, better support. There's a pregnancy center here in Mustang. So how could we better support that? And for that resource for women who are facing unexpected pregnancies. You know, and that, and so talking with them and how we could do that, things like that. But that's a big one. Providing material support to people, providing emotional support and spiritual support to people in these situations. And again, continuing to witness to the sanctity of life, that all life matters. All life is important, from conception to natural death. And some people always ask, why do you say natural death? Well, if somebody's living on life support and life support alone, you know, people have come and say, okay, Pastor, is it morally right if we pull the plug? And again, the witness is natural life. So if the body can't sustain itself without life support, then yeah, it is morally okay to say goodbye to the person. All right? There's nothing in the Bible that says we have to try to keep somebody alive beyond natural measures. That's not the witness of life in the Bible. So that's why I always say in the natural life. Because I have sat in those rooms. I've sat in the ICUs, and I've had to have those discussions with people, and we've had to have Bible studies and things like that. So I try to be very, very intentional with my words on this issue, because we just want people to know what the witness of Scripture is, and to not have an overly burdened conscience on an issue.
Hey, Pastor, talk about the pregnancy center.
Yep.
Our LWML group here, we're getting ready to support them. They've got, they have a
baby bottle program.
baby bottle.
Yeah.
We can go, I gotta talk to Ivy more about it, cause she wasn't at our meeting last week. But they provide the little baby bottles, and then we're gonna bring them back here to church and hand them out to each family.
You fill them up with coins.
And fill them up, and then we'll take them back to the pregnancy center.
Yep.
For everything to help them.
Yeah.
What they need there, so that's one way of supporting, you know, all of us supporting.
Yep. Yeah.
For pro-life.
It's also important to remember that pro-life isn't just about birth, but it is, you know, supporting people throughout life. It is opposing assisted suicide, you know, because that sees death as a solution, things like that. So, does that answer?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
I was just, you know, with the conversation we had last Sunday, I just was hoping, you know, they would throw some more, but that's okay, because like
Well,
she
Luke,
said with LWML, I mean,
yeah.
supporting the Mustang Pregnancy Center financially is
Yeah.
great, and there's gonna be a greater
There is.
need
There is.
for that.
Yeah.
I see like on Next Door Neighbor, when they have oh, I've got a baby bed for sale, and I think, oh, we oughta grab it, you know, and I think, well, will it still be good in
Yeah.
2 or 3 years, the way, you know, the rules?
Not in our garage.
Yeah.
They may not be able to give it to anybody depending on.
That's the
how
hard
old it
part
is.
when it
Yeah.
comes to buying
How
things
far
like
apart
that,
the
and car
plans
seats and all
are.
that.
It would be good,
Shelf life.
it would be good if there was a way to, not only like you're helping them monetarily that way, but to actually be able to reach out to these individuals that will be receiving those bottles. You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, so
Trying
you
to-
take the bottles back, you know, full of coins.
Right.
It's basically, it's a fundraising for the actual center.
Right.
And they use that money to buy diapers and formula and
Oh, I
things
see
like
what
that.
you're
Yeah.
saying, okay,
Yeah.
okay, but I mean, even though, but to be able to expand on that and actually reach out to the individuals that are benefiting from that center, and maybe doing what we can to spiritually support and help them also, not just giving them monetary and saying, look, hey, there you go, you know, and then just.
I don't know how the
there, you
law
know.
is, if they can do that or not.
But church and state probably, something
Well,
like that.
more of HIPAA.
Yeah,
things like that, so,
Yeah.
not 100%.
You can volunteer at the pregnancy center.
That's the other thing too, is you can always.
That's the
yeah.
best way to do what Robert's talking about.
So. And I think the other thing is just always to, react with the, joy when it comes to any pregnancy. Right? Yeah, there's fear and there's apprehension with people, but just saying, hey, look, another baby's wonderful, right? Babies are wonderful. I've never seen anybody like pick up a baby and be mad because they picked up a baby.
Yeah.
Like they're wonderful, and so reacting with joy and being joyous about that, and again, just providing support, how we can, how we're able.
Does the Lutheran Church have any adoption facilities for babies?
We do. So there are Lutheran adoption agencies. I don't know if they operate in Oklahoma.
They haven't for a long time.
Yeah.
Lutheran Social Service was here in Oklahoma.
Missouri,
But
Illinois.
okay, so there was Lutheran Social Services, but there are Lutheran just adoption agencies
Yeah.
Or
as well.
children's and family homes.
Yeah.
Where they
And I don't know, because of how the law, there's, I believe, state laws when it comes to adoption, potentially federal laws as well. I'm not the most versed on all that. And because I do know that they took the Obama administration to court. One in Kansas did, over can we adopt? Do we have to adopt? No matter the beliefs of the couple that come in, right? So they're out there again. I don't know if there's any in Oklahoma currently.
I was just wondering, I have a friend, her children are much older now, but she actually adopted when there was a need in the church.
Yeah.
She adopted babies that churchmen, children. Pregnant. So she has 2 adopted children, and it was a wonderful solution
Yeah.
to that problem. But I just wondered if there was some way, if we find out that there's somebody that wants to let their child go and they can't raise it or something, if there's some way that we can help with that.
That would be something to look into. Again, I don't know how the laws work.
Adoption, I never realized how expensive.
It is super
It's
expensive.
$70,000 plus.
Yeah.
I mean, your average person can't afford that.
No.
So I mean, they've gotta bring those prices down and people would adopt.
Most of that's in lawyer fees.
Well, I know
There are lawyers that specialize in adoption law they're client, and they're not trying to gouge these people by any means. But there's all these requirements and laws, rightfully so, right? You just don't want to put a kid in a bad situation. So there's you have to have lawyers and things like that to help navigate all that. But yeah, 70,000 is the average. The cheapest I've heard was 35,000. And it's usually a multi-year process. Anything else about the convention?
This is not about the convention, but
Okay.
I just want clarification
Yes.
on, you said the president of the district is not paid.
Correct.
Does Oklahoma make sure that that president has a vicar?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I just remember
Oklahoma
Oklahoma,
is
Kansas was
one
like
of the
that.
few districts where the president is still in a parish. In fact, Paul Hartman was the first president who was not also currently a parish pastor at the time, and that's because he retired from the public ministry halfway through his presidency, right? And most districts, it is a paid position because if you're elected president, you have to resign your call to the church because it's a full-time job. So Kansas is that way, Texas is that way, Michigan, a lot of the districts are that way. So yes, now here's the unfortunate reality. If the numbers keep on going down,
Yeah.
there might not be a vicar.
When I lived in Kansas, when I was in parochial school, our pastor was the Kansas district president,
Yep.
and he had a vicar.
Yep.
And we saw the vicar and knew the vicar much better than we knew
Yeah.
Pastor Bruns, because
And so I think that how vicarages are assigned, and the situation where the supervising pastor is the district president, they're basically slotted first to get a vicar. So when Pastor Hinkie was in full-time ministry, Holy Trinity always had a vicar for that reason, when he was district president. When he went to semi-retired, they didn't get a vicar because of that. So, and Trinity Norman has had a vicars in the past too. So, Fort Wayne, we won't comment on that.
Pastor for so many years.
So, yes. Any other questions about the convention or Lutheranism, Lutherans in America, LCMS? So, one thing is that, like most church bodies, the LCMS has seen significant decline. At one point, there was 2.5 million Lutheran Church Missouri Synod members, baptized members, and right now it's probably around 1.25 to 1.5 million. And it's been on a slow, steady decline, which increased in the 90s. Now we've seen the number go up in the past few years, and this was projected demographically to happen. So hopefully it will stay sustained. Corresponding to this, we've seen the rise of nuns, not just the LCMS. I'm not saying that it's just our members that are making the nuns, or
I'm sure
ex-members, I
you
should say.
clarify, nuns is not N-U-N.
Yes, that's
N.
true. N-O-N-E-S, yeah. The N-U-N-S nuns have been decreasing, but the N-O-N-E-S nuns have been increasing. Interestingly enough, looking at the sociological data, why they don't claim a religion, they tend to be very spiritual in a sense, and we've actually seen the rise of, what's really interesting is the rise of nuns who then identify as pagan. And so we've seen a rise of former European paganism, so Odin worship and things like that. It's like, you guys do realize what the word nun means. It means non-religious, not I'm not religious but I'm pagan. Like, those are mutually exclusive terms. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. So there is a lot of work out there to do. There are still people to call to repentance. Right now, there's going to be dividing lines in Christendom in America because of the Roe v. Wade decision that got passed down. Seen a lot of celebrity Christians that sit there and just in the past couple weeks say, well, I'm not really religious. Religions are oppressive. I'm just a follower of Jesus. And it's like, talk about that. It's basically the I'm spiritual but not religious type thing. So, a lot of work to do. Continue to witness. That's all I got. That's what this. We will get back on track. Next week we'll be talking about the creed. So Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Talk about God. Enjoy your free time. Talk amongst yourselves. There's still donuts and coffee over there.